hearing. Continue public hearing, the definitive subdivision approval for Mary Avenue Extension, 11557R Main Street. We've got a request from the applicant to continue this to February 3rd. So I need a motion to continue this to February 3rd at 6:30.
Make a motion to continue on February 3rd at 6:30. Second.
I have a motion made and seconded to continue to February 3rd at 6:30. Do I have any discussion of the board? Here none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. If anybody was here for that Mary Avenue, you see it's being continued, so I don't think there was anything. I'm still waiting for one board member, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move on to our regular meeting. Call the order, please.
Patrick Perla.
Here.
Fred Fredericks.
Here.
Paul Weiser.
Here.
Salvatore Ciccone. Excused. John Souza.
Here.
Howard Vittorioso. Here. Thomas Carden.
Here.
Minutes of previous meetings, November 4th, 2019.
Make a motion to accept them. Second.
Have a motion made and seconded to accept the minutes. Do we have any additions, deletions, or corrections?
Great job.
Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. No new plans. Mary Avenue has been continued. Okay, 4.2. I can go on without, so, okay. The reconsideration continued for public hearing definitive subdivision approval for the Meadowlands at Willard Street. Okay?
Chair, did I mention to you that we have the postmaster in attendance?
What's that?
Did I mention to you that we have the postmaster in attendance and he's requested
Okay.
the chair would consider that he be moved up on the agenda?
Okay, let's deal with this, because this should be quick, I think. Let me explain to the board and to the audience. There seemed to have been some confusion at the last meeting on this this proposal. I actually was in error when we said it was approved with a 3-2 vote, and I just missed it. Okay, I'm sorry, but really I needed a four votes for this to pass. So in essence, even though I said it was passed, it was not passed. It failed. So we've asked a member to bring this forward. The Robert's rules are that a member in the prevailing vote, which I stated, could call for reconsideration. So do I have reconsideration at this time?
I call for the reconsideration.
Mr. Perla, call for reconsideration. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Mr. Frederick, okay? So reconsideration, this is a roll call vote. There is no discussion. Okay?
What are we voting on?
This is on the Mary Avenue. No, this is on Meadowlands, okay? On Willard Street.
As proposed with the road widening.
With the road widening and the whole package, okay? So that's the way it was proposed, and that's what. So could you please call the roll for the vote?
Patrick Perla.
Yay.
Fred Fredericks.
Yay.
Paul Weiser.
No.
Howard Vittorioso.
Is this for reconsidering the vote?
Yes.
To
No.
reconsider it.
No.
Thomas Carden.
Okay, the motion was to reconsider. Okay, so that requires a simple majority, not the okay, as I understand it.
It's a different vote.
That's just to reconsider the vote, to bring it
Just
back
to
on the table.
Okay.
Okay? So in that case, the motion is passed to reconsider. The motion to reconsider is now on the table. This would be to pass or fail, okay, the actual project as being reconsidered. I'll call for the roll call a second time.
Patrick Perla,
Yay.
Fred Fredericks,
Yay.
Paul Weiser,
No.
Carol Vittorioso,
No.
Thomas Kerrigan.
Yeah.
Pass.
Motion fails. Motion needed 3 votes to pass. So the motion for fails.
No, 3 votes. Pass.
No, need 4 votes to pass. I had 3. Okay? So Meadowlands has been denied. Okay? We can go to continued over public meeting. Site plan approval for 133 Nashua Street. That was scheduled for 6:35. I'll also open the continued public hearing for a special permit approval for 133 Nashua Street. Do I have a representative for the Nashua Street?
My name is Joe Danubio. I'm representing product in Nashua Street. Is it okay if I put-
Yes, definitely come up to the board. You can get up your,
Okay, I slide this.
Chair, it's 6:36. Did you want to open
I did.
both of them?
Yep, 35 and 36. I opened.
Okay.
Could you put that up high on the clip?
I'm sorry, I
That's
not
just
called
the,
that last time. My
It's
apologies.
makes it a little easier for the camera to,
Probably makes it easier for everybody.
yeah. Okay,
So
go ahead.
on behalf of Central District Realty, we're proposing this site plan. I'll give a little, maybe brief synopsis for some
Right.
members that may not have been here at the last meeting.
That's fine.
Currently, this property is used as a contractor yard. There's no buildings, no infrastructure on it at the present time. It's more or less bare soil. They use it for storage of pipes, trucks, equipment, other materials that they use for their business as a contractor. We're proposing to keep the use as a contractor yard. There are 3 buildings proposed, 1, 2, and 3. The first 2 buildings are office maintenance buildings. The majority of the buildings will be used for maintenance of vehicles and other equipment that they have. A small portion of them will be used for just office staff for their operations. There are obviously utilities, water lines, sewer lines, electric lines to the buildings. The rear building is just a storage shed for the materials. Again, the goal of the contractor is just to have their operation more organized. I think it's a good thing for the city. It'll be more presentable and appeasing to the eye as you drive by, and it will be better looking. There's also in the last hearing, we had a discussion about whether or not to pave the parking area. The original proposal was to have it unpaved. There were many conversations with the building inspector, conservation, unless anyone feels the need to get into that. I don't think we do.
Nope.
We have agreed to, based on one of the conditions in the bylaws, to
City ordinances.
city ordinance to pave that area. Otherwise, it will require another special permit, which we just decided we'll pave it and stripe it as requested by the board. That's the only major change to the plan from the last hearing. As a result, we submitted revised stormwater calculations as requested and would be required based on the increase in pervious area. So this stormwater detention infiltration system, which is reducing the peak flows to the abutting sites and to the resource area, expanded by probably 30% just to handle the runoff from the newly paved area and pervious area. So we did revise the report and the calculations to reflect that as well. I know in speaking with Elizabeth, I don't know if it's been reviewed yet by engineering, but we had discussions that that might be a condition of approval, that if they haven't reviewed it,
Okay.
As long as they do and everything's okay, then that would be okay. There were a couple other changes to the plan that were requested. One was just some building dimensions chart for the use and areas of the building, which we added to the plan. There was a question about site lighting, which will be on the buildings, which I noted over here on the plan that that's how it will be lit.
Okay.
That the areas that will be used in the building. And the snow storage area, I added some percentages. I know the ordinance requires 5%, I believe, of
Right.
impervious areas. I just said it's 9.8% of the total lot area, so that's more than accommodating.
That's more than a, yeah, okay.
That's how I looked at it. I think that plenty of that. So just a couple other comments for people or board members that may not have been here at the last hearing. There is some pavement on the site. It's kind of broken up a lot. We will be removing that.
Are you going to pave into it, or are you just going to pave the area between the buildings?
We're just going to pave the area in between the buildings. There is a curb cut in there. But yeah, so the other addition is, I don't know if you guys want to see it, but I did add a catch basin here. The ordinance does state that runoff should not go onto abutting sites, so I did regrade that area. Before, it was kind of just, the natural slope of the site is going down that way. So,
Okay.
So that paved area would have gone onto the abutting property, so.
Okay.
I created a berm in there and had everything flow to that catch basin to accommodate that part of the ordinance.
And that goes all into
And that
the
goes into
detention?
the infiltration system. So
Into the infiltration.
that's how we handle that aspect of it.
Okay.
But yeah, the ordinance only requires that the parking area be paved, so that's how we accommodate. And I know we had some discussions last time about ADA compliance.
I think that was just some more offhand than anything else.
It was, but when I talked to the building inspector, again, it would have required a special permit to not pave it, but he was okay even with the packed down surface for compliance. So.
ADA says that it can be compacted.
Yeah,
But
that's.
ours is,
Yeah.
you know,
No, it's different, so, but
Yeah.
with that respect, we just follow the ordinance that the parking area is paved, and that's
right.
the magnitude of it.
You just can't stripe it if it's dark.
No, you can't.
No, you really don't.
You can't, and I had this discussion with Elizabeth, even with Mr. Souza. The building that I work in, we have an area that's dirt, we have a paved area and a dirt area. We tried to pave it, the Conservation Commission wouldn't allow it. And you know what, it still functions, everybody parks and is respectful of everybody else, not taking up 1.5 spots or parking sideways, because, you know, you're all in the same building and you want to have that mutual respect and not be the guy who does the wrong thing.
Okay.
And there is, side note, there is some landscaping around the site as well. There is a landscape plan. I don't know if you guys want to see that. I think we
Where's the
did.
landscaping?
There's some landscaping in the front.
In the front, yeah.
There's some on the side here, a little on the side over there for screening. And here for screening as well. So there's some screening in both these areas. I think on this side of the site is pretty much another building that's similar, so it's kind of going to be all one cluster. So. In regards to your comment about the gravel and the pavement, there was I don't know if you want to see it, but I added 2 details, one for the catch basin, which was not in the plan previously, and another detail for the pavement and the sub-base here on the detail sheets.
Did the drainage calculations change much?
It did. That amount of impervious area required, probably the system was about that long before.
Okay.
So in comparison to the other impervious areas, it was significant. So that system was expanded probably 30-35%. And in doing that, the peak flows were actually reduced even more than they were in the previous submission.
Oh, okay.
So the peak runoff to the resource area and the butters is down dramatically. And again, this is a redevelopment, that's not necessarily required, but because,
Yeah, but it was- okay.
because we can do it, we have to do it.
You do it,
So we
right.
So we did it.
Yeah,
I
okay.
know other sites are more compact and you get around that with redevelopment.
Well, sometimes, you know, you work your site, you know, we try to be accommodating to the best we can, you know?
This site had more than enough area to accommodate everything.
Right.
So it's good.
Okay. Okay, with that, I'll open it up to the audience. Do I have anyone from the audience that has any questions about this project? I'll ask a second time. Do I have anyone from the audience that has any questions or comments? Third and final time. Any questions from the audience? Board members?
Looks good. I'm satisfied.
Yeah, okay. Motion would be in order for 6:35 for the open public meeting.
Second.
I have a motion made and second to close the open public meeting, place site plan approval for 133 Nashua Street. Motion made and seconded. All approve, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries.
Make a motion to close the special permit approval.
Have a, okay, continued open, yeah, I have a motion for the continued public hearing for special permit approval for 133 Nashua Street for use.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Here none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Good luck, guys.
Thank you very much, you guys. All have a wonderful holiday.
Yeah, we'll have, this will come up later on, and on the agenda, and that's when we'll put in any conditions that we may have, but primarily it's the stuff that you're already given us.
Yeah, I'm pretty
Yeah.
confident. I've talked with John and engineering
Right.
significantly with the drainage, so I am more than confident they'll be very satisfied.
Okay. Very good.
Thank you.
6:40.
6:40, I'm on schedule. 6:40, open public meeting for site plan approval for 01 Lancaster Street. Map 401, yeah. Lancaster Street, map 356, parcel 12. My representative.
Yes, sir.
For the record, Chris Harrison with Canyon Engineering, here on behalf of Leominster Access Television for the construction of a new 4,500 square foot office building and TV studio off of Lancaster Street. Just to orientate ourselves here, we have Lancaster Street that runs along the top portion of the page with Litchfield.
Excuse me, got a question on that. Is that off of Lancaster or is that off of Litchfield?
The property-
Because, yeah, okay,
Property
because
used to
the,
go off of Lancaster, so it's referenced on Lancaster that way.
okay, but we have a request from the assessors that the address be changed to Litchfield.
Yeah, we can
Okay.
do that once it gets to that
So
point.
whatever the paperwork is that we have to do that, we can reference that after. Okay?
We had just oriented ourselves, we have Litchfield that runs along the bottom portion of the page. There used to be an existing building on this property, but at this time that building has been removed. The site is relatively vacant, there's some scrub brush and everything like that, but besides that, not much is out there. It's the intent of the applicant to construct a new 4,500 square foot office building. That will be a combination of studio space and other miscellaneous offices for the proposed work. Access to the site will be off of Litchfield Street. There will be two parking lot areas prior to the building. The primary parking area that will be utilized by both visitors and the main users will be located a little bit to the northern portion of the property. It will have 11 spaces along with the appropriate handicap and dumpster pad areas. And there'll be a secondary parking lot area for regular employees and whatnot like that too. Stormwater will be accommodated via deep sump catch basins directing towards a central drainage main that will discharge to a proposed detention basin, which will ultimately provide peak rate mitigation to the site and discharge further downstream to a proposed connection to an existing culvert. Currently, the runoff does follow the same general pattern, so the detention basin will capture the vast majority of the stormwater runoff and provide the appropriate treatment and mitigation. Sewage will be provided via a new pump system that will pump the wastewater to Lancaster Street for a gravity connection with the main within that roadway. And domestic water will also be provided up to that area. We have received comments from the planning director and various department heads. Unfortunately, didn't get the director's comments till later this afternoon, so I've had a moment to take a quick look over everything. I can provide cursory comments relative to everything like that.
Go ahead.
So the first comment was relative to the parking configuration. So it's like comment 1.1, if you will, relative to the professional office space requirement and the overall TV studio. I've talked with the applicant. It's not intended to have any full-time employee dedicated to the actual studio itself. So it's really hard to try to put a parking count to that number. So the overall parking count was based on the 4,500 square foot of pure office space within the building itself. When you take that calculation, you need to require 12 spaces minimum for providing 17. So we have an excess of about 5 spaces. So we are well above the requirements in our opinion. Comment number 1.2 is just dimensions of the parking spaces. They're your typical 9 by 18 parking spaces. If the board would like, we can always add those additional notations prior to construction or whatnot. The widths of the parking aisles are set at the typical 24 feet. Comment number 1.4 is relative to parking space counts. As typical in most of our projects, we provide the parking space counts in a general manner in the locations that they're located. I mean, as long as it seems reasonable. The director is requesting that we sequentially number the parking spaces. We are hesitant to do that only because we don't want it to be taken that the spaces need to be marked in the field as space 1, space 2, space 3, space 4, and such.
Okay.
The parking counts are shown, in our opinion, to document the overall parking count in the area. Comment 1.5 is relative to the handicap parking space signage. Additional notations can be added, documenting the location of the handicap space with the appropriate signage and all the other requirements relative to that. Comment 1.6 is relative to snow storage. I did take a look at this, and I was able to add the snow storage areas to the project. As discussed in the project narrative, it's our intent to plaster the outer edges of the actual parking lot area for snow storage areas. And in the event of a large storm event, that snow can be removed as appropriate. We're showing the snow storage primarily along this upper parking area. That will be allowed to be pushed over into this area. And the southern portion, it's a little bit more open space than this back portion, so it's the intent to push it a little bit further back. As it's being shown now, we're approximately 7,000 square feet of parking area. This snow storage area configuration provides about 2,300, so we're well within the 5% requirement of the act or the ordinance. And again, for documentation purposes, we can add that to the site plan prior to construction. So currently, a photometric plan is going to be proposed or developed prior to construction that will comply with the ordinance. At this point in time, we're expecting the lighting to be provided off of the building itself with no real substantial light utility poles out in the parking lot areas. It's a relatively small parking area, and it's relatively close to the building, so we're not anticipating any major lighting schemes or posting on the property. And again, that can be provided to the board and the engineering department for their review prior to construction, and it'll comply with the applicable ordinances.
So your lighting plan has to be developed yet, right?
Correct. Which will be kind of coordinated with the architecturals once they get that building facade and everything squared away, so they know where to put the lights in conjunction with the building design.
Okay. Do we have, how big is that? Okay. That's sunken, so that's not gonna have a problem on Litchfield Street.
No, so Litchfield
On
Street.
Lancaster, rather,
Yeah,
but
sorry.
Litchfield.
Lancaster, the lower portion of the property, or that roadway is at 100 elevation relative to the site, and you get to about 110 at the intersection of Litchfield and Lancaster Street, and the building pad area is going to be sitting around the 96 contour. So you're about 4 feet lower into the property on the lower end and about 8 feet on the other end. So it's going to be well sunken in, so light overshine is not anticipated to be an issue against the roadways.
Okay. Yeah, we'll have to have a plan for that. Okay.
Landscaping, I did take a review of our narrative. We did request a waiver for allowing a licensed landscape architect to provide the landscaping design of everything. As shown on the plans, we're proposing some landscape beds along the outer perimeter of the main entrance of the building and whatnot. As further review, it was found that the landscape trees required under the parking ordinance weren't provided, so we can provide the required 6 landscaping trees on the outer perimeters of the parking lot area to provide compliance with that component of the ordinance. Again, they can always be added prior to construction.
Okay, and what about the rest of the space? Is that going to be just a grassed area, or is that
So
going
anything
to
that's not disturbed or anything that's not being permanently altered will be just loaned and seeded for
be owned and seated?
Yep.
Okay.
Big improvement.
This third comment relative to stormwater runoff. A drainage analysis was performed on the property and was provided to engineering and public works. We did receive comments back from the engineering department, and the only request was that we perform a test hole within the detention basin area to be witnessed by them, just to confirm what's there is what we're expecting to be there.
So, yeah, I noticed that detention pond drains off into the, towards the road. Is that over?
Yeah, so currently the land just naturally sheds the water off towards the gutter line of Litchfield Street.
Uh-huh.
So we'll capture that, provide the appropriate mitigation and treatment, and then pipe it down Litchfield Street to connect with the existing culvert that the water ultimately runs into. So this work is being performed within the buffer zone of the wetlands. So we will have to go in front of conservation for that work within their jurisdictional areas. So
Okay.
instead of having it just running off along the edge of the road, we're trying to capture it.
Well, what about the riprap? Is that, did you have that?
Which are-
Will that ever be off of the detention pond?
This one here?
Yeah.
That's the emergency spillway, so by code, we're required to have that, just in the off chance that something bad happens. It allows the emergency release of the runoff in the case. This basin was designed to accommodate a 100-year storm, so it's more than adequate to capture or detain the runoff. But it is there as a redundancy feature.
So that is for a 100-year storm?
Yeah, it's sized above that.
Okay.
And there's also a subdrain within the bottom of the basin, so it allows the water to wick away between storm events and helps with the drawdown. This will make sure that we still have the full capacity within the basin at the end of the day between storm events.
Okay.
Comment 4 was just relative to abutting properties. It was requested that we provide abutting property information for 300 feet with it along the perimeter of the property, which we can provide again prior to construction. Fifth comment was relative to adding a north arrow to the locust plan on the cover sheet. So we can add that again and provide it on the vicinity locust maps that are also on all the individual plan sheets as well. Comment number 6 is just to confirm any and all easements and right-of-ways on the site plan. So we have provided the information relative to the right-of-ways of the road, and as far as we know, there are no easements within the property. Comment number 7 is proposed dumpster screening. We are documenting that we need a closed dumpster pad in the northern pad area. It's the intent that would be a solid fence wall material, be it stockade, vinyl, and whatnot, but it will be an enclosed pad area so that it's visually impaired from all the abutting properties in the right of way. Comment number 8 is just again relative to snow removal, which I ran into information before. Comment number 9 is relative to signage. This time there's no proposed signage along the roadway or anything like that. And the only signage that we're proposing would be at the entrance for the, or at the handicap parking space. If in the future additional signage is required, or
There's going to be no freestanding sign or anything?
at this point in time. If
Okay.
that does change, obviously we'll have to go through the building department and go through the appropriate measures for that signage.
So the signage is only going to be on the building.
Correct.
Is that included on your drawing?
No, because the architecturals haven't been finished for the outer
Okay.
facade. Which again runs into comment number 9, or 10, sorry, relative to the architectural elevations. Those are still being worked on. It can always be provided prior to construction as well to the board.
Okay. Do you have anything you wish to add?
I can go through the 2 department heads that comments that we received.
Okay.
One we got from the Conservation Commission, and they're just stating that a filing will be required for the proposed stormwater connection, and we acknowledge that, and we'll be going through that process shortly. And from DPW and Engineering was relative to a test hole within the basement area, which we just reviewed prior to just a moment ago. Besides that, if there's any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Okay. Thank you very much. So I'll open up to the audience. Do I have any questions from the audience? Comments? Okay, I'll ask again. Do I have any positive or negative comments on this project? Third and final time? Okay, question to the board. Does the board have any questions? Okay. I have a motion made and seconded to close the hearing. All in favor say, okay. First one is for the open public meeting for site plan approval, 401 Lancaster Street. That's it, that's all we have. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. Very good.
Thank you.
Okay, 6:45. Open public meeting for site plan approval at Tanzio Road. Okay, you got Tanzio Road too, huh?
Sir,
Okay. Please identify yourself.
again, for the record, Chris Anderson with Kennedy Engineering, here on behalf of Chad Tolan for the construction of several self-storage unit buildings along with the trade shop building at Tanzio Road. Just to orient ourselves here, we have Tanzio Road that runs along the bottom portion of the page here. And as you go towards the right side of the plan, you eventually hit Central Street. Just a little history on the project. Historically, this area was utilized as a sand and gravel mining operation. Back to, as far as we can see, is the 95 and probably earlier. That process went on for quite a while, and in 2008, the planning board approved a definitive subdivision for an industrial subdivision in this area. So at this point in time, this subdivision has been constructed, along with all the appropriate utilities, drainage, sewer, water, the whole 9 yards, and whatnot. One of the main features of this, the original definitive subdivision plan, is that during that time frame, as part of the overall design, the overall impervious area for each of the individual lots was calculated, and the stormwater system was designed to accommodate the future development of all the individual lots. So I'll go a little bit further detail into the drainage analysis momentarily, but just to keep that in the back of your mind. So currently the property is vacant. There's scrub brush, but mostly it's bearing soil, little to nothing going on it. It's the intent of the applicant to construct 5 self-storage unit buildings along the southern portion of the property, or the southeastern portion of the property, with access off of Tanzio Road. And a second building in the future to be utilized as a small trade shop building, such as plumbers, electricians, something like that, in order for them to have storage space and an office space during the off hours. Due to the nature of the self-storage buildings, because they're a relatively flat structure and everything like that, the elevation of this lower pad area around the self-storage buildings essentially becomes tabletopped. In order to facilitate the actual construction of the site and to allow for the full utilization of the property, the self-storage buildings will be built at a lower pad, and the upper trade shop buildings will be built in an upper pad. That's why we're providing 2 separate entrances to these intended uses. As required under the ordinance, we are required to provide some parking for the self-storage buildings and whatnot. By code, we need at least 3 spaces, so we're providing 3 spaces along the northern portion of the property. It's the intent to also construct a small rental office to be utilized primarily during the rental agreements and everything like that. So it'll be a small 10 by 20 square foot area with potentially a bathroom and a water area, so we're providing the appropriate utilities into that area. And we're providing 2 additional parking spaces right adjacent to that for the manager's office use and the intended users use at the end of the day. In addition to that, as I said before, there will be a small trade shop building, anticipating about 1,200 square foot per unit to be utilized as a office space and as a storage warehousing space for materials and whatnot like that. We'll begin providing the appropriate parking up in this area. As I said before, the site was originally designed to accommodate a certain amount of impervious. So as part of the overall drainage analysis, we calculated the amount of impervious as originally designed under the subdivision, and designed the site to be less than the approved impervious area. This site plan actually shows a reduction in the impervious area, so by default, and we talked with DPW about this, because we're within the limits of the originally approved plan, we're able to discharge to the existing detention basin as originally designed, with no mitigation features on the property itself. Sewage, we're anticipating to have a single connection from the trade shop building, so a new sewer connection will be provided that will tie into the existing main and the stub that's been brought onto the property. And the appropriate water connection will also be made to these buildings, again, off the stubs that have already been brought onto the property. We are subject to the Wetlands Protection Act, and we have gone before the Commission for a determination of applicability, which they approved last Tuesday, so we have received our approvals from the Conservation Commission relative to the property. So we did receive comments back from the planning director and the various department heads. Before I can run through those again. Okay, So it's going to follow the same general path as the previous comments. So if you go 1.1, again, is relative to the trade shop buildings. For the purposes of our calculations, we presumed a 100 square foot office space with additional, with the remaining portion of the building space for each unit being warehouse and storage. So that's how we calculated the parking calculation. The way we designed the parking lot area up here is that each space or each bay of that building will have 2 parking spaces and the appropriate drive-in in case they need to get drive a vehicle into the building. So relative to the employee counts, at this point in time, it's difficult to tell what the final full-time employees are going to be. But as it starts getting built out, it will be monitored, and if parking does become an issue, we can always readdress that in the future. But right now, we're proposing to at least have 2 spaces. It's not intended to be a full-scale trade shop area, relative, or more so a small area for small-time contractors. 1.2 is again just confirming the dimensions of the parking spaces. They are 9 by 18 typical. We can always add those to the site plans prior to construction. The width of the parking
You
house.
keep on saying prior to construction. I'd like to have those drawings updated, okay, and approved in advance, okay? So that we know that that stuff is being taken care of, okay?
Absolutely.
I've got a question as you go along. Where are 2 questions? How about parking on that for all the people that have these? Are they going to park in front of their units? Are these all open parking? Do we have enough space for 2-way traffic? How is that all going to work?
So the spacing between the buildings is 24 feet, so that's your typical driving aisle.
Okay.
It's a self-storage unit, so it's not intended that people are going to be parked there for long periods of time. Loading and unloading of the vehicles into the storage units will be performed right in front of those spaces. We did provide some parking for excess cars, if you will, in case there's more than one user in the area that needs to store their car there for a brief moment. But it's the intent to have the loading and unloading of all the individual units right in front of the unit itself.
Pretty much empty spaces.
And 90% of the time it's going to be an open space. But the 24-foot wide drive aisle is your typical driving aisle in a parking lot, so you should have more than enough maneuvering room
Okay.
to get around.
The other question I got is, we've had other people come to storage units and they came back to us and they've had an on-site manager that lived on the site. Okay? And I'm just talking about some others, so I have to ask the question here. Are you planning to have anyone living on this site as a full-time manager?
No, not living, no.
Okay, there's not going to be an apartment associated with this at all?
No, there'll be a small office.
Just an office?
Just an office, but no.
Okay,
no
because
occupancy.
we've had others, because of security reasons and stuff, they have actually come back and have an office and somebody living there.
Yeah, we're also proposing to put a security fence around the outer perimeter of the site, the gate at the entrance.
Mm-hmm.
So there will be some security relative to that, but no, there's no intent to have anybody living on this property.
Okay. With that security fence, which I've seen around that, how are you going to accommodate your snow storage?
Yep, so again, there's snow storage.
It's on the other side of the fence.
Nope. So the fence has been set a little bit more than 5 feet off the actual curb line. So plowing can be pushed off to this side. And we've provided areas for push-off along the corners of the ends of the building. So the intent is that as the snowplow goes through, they can push it to the side over here to get up to the upper portion over here. And they can also push it this direction and provide the snow storage off the pavement in this area too. And that was one of the comments that the director had, and I did take a look at that. We have approximately 38,000 square feet of
So you see your chain link is only 5 feet from the road?
along the lower portion of the site, and then dives into the back portion of the building. And once you get into the rear portion of the property, against the hill, going towards the power line easement,
Mm-hmm.
so you have approximately 15 feet off of the non-parking space area. That's the set for the fence line, so there'll be plenty of storage in that area as well. And along that, we also have that additional push-off area behind building number 1, if you will, on either side of it. So as the snowplow comes around, it can push into that area as well.
Okay. So do you get the 5%?
Yep, so we have approximately 38.9, so 38,900 square feet of parking area on the property. As shown, we have approximately 4,600 square feet of snow storage area along the outer perimeter of everything, which equates to about 10% of the parking area.
Okay.
And again, that can be provided to the board as well. Comment number 1.4, if you will, is relative to the sequential parking counts. Again, we have provided the parking counts and the specific areas around the property. Again, we're hesitant to sequentially number, specifically on the plan, the parking spaces, just in the off chance that it's implied that these parking spaces actually need to be painted and numbered in the field.
Just a comment and question is, are you going to have lines delineated between the each unit on your pavement?
Like a painted stripe?
Yeah. So I'm just talking from people comment to me that things overlap sometimes, you know, and I didn't know if is that defined or is that required. I'm not sure if that's even required, you know. The necessary thing, so that each unit, so people say, I get unit 10, my unit 10 goes from here to here, you know? And so that they don't end up using the space for unit 11, 12, and 13 on the different.
Oh,
when they're,
for the loading inside?
Yeah, loading and unloading.
No, it's not the intent to do that.
I don't know, it's just a comment somebody made to me once, and I said, okay, I'll ask the question. Yeah.
You drop stuff off and then it'll look back.
Yeah. Yeah.
The trade
okay.
shop, the trade shop, obviously, you have
Yeah, trade shop's a different story. I'm talking about the.
With the van out front.
Yeah, so there's a parking space in front of each one.
How many are there, 4?
4 units, so we have
1,200?
Yeah,
There's a garage door.
garage door, parking spot right in front of each entranceway, and then an additional 4 spaces on the back portion of it too. But to that point, that's...
Yeah, it's just, people make
You take it into
comments.
consideration.
Yeah, sometimes people make comments to me, so I'll bring it up. I don't have a particular issue.
Comment 1.5 is relative to the handicap parking signage. We are providing a single handicap parking space in the trade shop area for that use, so we can always provide that additional signage and details onto the plan set. We're not proposing any handicap parking in this area.
You're going to have to.
Well,
Because that's where your office is going to be with people coming in and out. You could have a person that's handicapped coming in there.
and to that point, this entire area, as I said before, is dead flat. So we do have the ability to make that work. And there's also a 5-foot concrete pad area right next to the building.
Right.
So we can always have that, we can designate that as a handicap spot. But that also does limit the ability for any other user to use that spot.
I realize that, but you have, because that's where your office, you could have handy people, so they're going to have that, that's going to have to be delineated. And it's I'm not sure what it's going to do. You're going to have to add another spot for other customers. So one for handicap and a couple others. The way you can bring it around the back of the building.
Potential side, potentially.
I don't know if that would...
One here. Again.
Yeah, you put at the end of that building.
But this is a handicap here, and put another space here.
Yeah, we can take a look into that. Because it does get into a weird portion of the ADA relative to that.
It does, yeah.
basically.
Especially where you're at two different levels with the,
It's all flat.
with the building up top, it's, treated as two different areas, really.
Slide that building back. As much as we can.
We can, we'll review that relative to ADA requirements and whatnot.
Okay.
For a handicap, you got two spaces there, putting a handicap at one of them with one more, nothing out there.
Well, the intent is those two two spots there. One would be for the office manager and one would be for the tenant, if you will.
Yeah.
By putting a handicap spot there, we essentially kill that one spot for
Yeah, but what about for your customer coming in? You really, I think you got the officer that's gonna be there, probably a clerk, and you're not gonna have any parking, you don't have any parking for customers.
You probably have one person. It's probably only be one person working in that office area at one point in time, so you see the parking.
I just moved, and I just spent time at a storage facility, and it was similar to that, and there were several people waiting in line ahead of me the three times I was there to use it, so the parking spaces were used.
Yeah, I think your parking is inadequate because same difference. I've been over to with a friend of mine over to the one on Central Street, and there were 3 or 4 people in the office when I was there. So you either make the buildings a little bit smaller or you find a way of accommodating some more parking. But making the parking just accommodate just for a small office, I think is it's not going to work for you. It's not going to work for us.
Well, I don't think they need parking for people dropping stuff off. They have
It's
parking
not-
in front of their rental spots.
No, that's not, I'm not worried about that. I'm talking about people coming in, looking for, negotiating for a new rental spot and paying their bill and whatever it might be. And there's a fair amount of traffic in and out of that office. You get a couple of people in there. And just having 2 spaces there, when you got 2 people working, it doesn't work. And plus you don't have your handicap, so I think you gotta,
Like Patrick said, the guy who works there, or the woman who works there can park in the back.
well, they could, but they don't have, they're not.
There's room
Yeah,
like that.
because
Yeah.
by requirement, we only really need, is it 3 spaces for your warehouse and storage. Cumulative is about 22,200 square feet, 10,000 per spot. We need a little bit more than 2 spaces, so we're providing 3 spaces there. And the office building only requires a single spot there. So we are in excess of the required parking in this lower pad area.
But you've got
I
that.
understand the board's.
Your parking in the back there is not, I hate to say it, I'm looking at people, okay? They're not gonna park up back there and walk all the way to your front office. It's not gonna happen. They're gonna park right in front of those buildings, okay? Whether there's parking allowed there or not, or whether it's striped or not, and they'll be parking in front of those buildings
You don't have room to
and walking over to there. So, I mean, find a way to accommodate your customer. Like you say, I'm gonna, that's gonna be employee parking out back, okay, but I'm looking at nature, and, what experience that I say is what people do. They look for the shortest route and the closest location. Okay? I mean, you meet the right, by the letter of the law,
Yeah.
you meet the letter of the law. But at the same time, we also like to make recommendations that we want to see things work. And if I see a potential problem in the future, it makes everything work better for us and for everybody else.
No, understood.
Okay, so all it is a suggestion.
I think you need at least a couple more, just use a spot there. And maybe there's enough room there to be able to park. Looks like a pretty decent size. How many feet is there here?
Very scary. Probably looking at 45, 50 feet between the 2 buildings. or from at least from the curb line to that outer edge of that
So
building.
there's room to park there. Someone's coming in just to go
You
pick
could
it up.
put 2 spots there.
Yeah, you could. You just mark it properly, that's all. But that's right where your entrance is, so that makes it difficult too. Okay, so you look at, you say, okay, I want to have enough people to make a turn, trucks to come in and out. So that's what, you know, if somebody comes in with a truck, a box truck, they got to be able to make that turn.
And that's partially why the buildings are, when you start getting to certain areas, if they're still a bit more open, just allow for that box truck to make that swing in order to get into the space.
So putting parking right at the end of that building could be, you know, iffy also. Because, you know, I don't see, I'd have to look at a plan for turning radiuses. You know, I don't know how big a truck, typically a box truck, but I don't think anybody would come in here with a small semi, would they?
If they're doing that, they don't need a self-storage unit.
Yeah, I'm just trying to,
No, yeah, no.
Small trucks,
small truck, right, box truck, I'm saying probably a 20,
Yeah.
20, probably a 20-foot box, yeah.
Okay, you hold.
I think we want to see some of the turning radiuses on the, and just how that parking should be adjusted. Okay. Do we have anything else? No storage, we've covered.
Self-storage unit order.
Yeah, so the first comment, square footage, there was a typo. I forgot to remove the portion of the office building from the area calculation for building number 5, but the office, or the parking calculation for the overall site was incorrect, so just a typographical error on my part. Lighting, this is the intended use. There'd be some small wall packs along the building for security purposes, but it's not the intent to, again, provide substantial lighting in the area. Obviously, a lighting plan will be developed in compliance with the ordinance and everything like that as well.
Is that going to be an automatic lighting program so that people went into certain areas, the lights would come on? Or is that, are they going to be on all the time, or is it?
I don't know for that. I don't have a good answer for you for that one.
Really nothing back there.
What's that?
There's no residents back there. It's
No residents back there, but like I said, I was in one area, and then as you drove in, the lights are dark, they're off. They do have residents behind them, and then they only come on when somebody is in there.
At this point in time, I don't believe we'd be doing that, but we can take that into consideration as part of the overall lighting design.
Yeah, so we'd have to see that lighting design. Okay.
That covers it.
Yeah, then the landscaping, again, we just requested the waiver for the professional or landscape architect and providing the appropriate street trees around the outer perimeter of the site and everything like that. Comment number 3 was runoff. I just went through that with the board. We have reviewed this with DPW, and they came back with no comments relative to drainage design or anything like that. Again, the abutting properties within 300 feet of the site, we can provide that information. We are showing the right-of-way information along Tanzio and the appropriate right-of-way, or I'm sorry, the easement for the power lines along the back portion of the property. We are providing a dumpster pad area near the trade shop building that will be enclosed. So that will be a solid wall material or solid fence material such as vinyl or stockade, wherever the applicant decides to do at the end of the day.
Is that dumpster also going to be for the office?
Or is this office area?
Yeah.
We're not intending any substantial trash development from this building, this office area. So it'll be a small trash receptacle that will be taken off-site as necessary by the applicant at the end of the day, or the end user.
Are they going to have, they're not going to have access to that upper dumpster?
They'll also have access to the upper dumpster pad area, but the provide a full dumpster down in this area would be a little bit overkill because there's.
So I don't disagree with that, but you're not gonna get city pickups there.
No.
Okay, so you're gonna have some trash, and there's gonna be some kind of a plan for that.
Yeah. And, yeah. Comment number 7 is relative to snow. Comment number 8 is relative to signage. At this point in time, there's no freestanding signs proposed on the property. That does change in the future. Obviously, we'll have to go through the proper permitting process in order to get that approved. And comment number 9 is relative to architectural elevations. These are going to be prefab steel structures, generic building that you typically see at a storage unit. So there's not going to be really substantial architectural facades. Seeing how this area is an industrial park, there's really no aesthetics in the area relative to such as a single-family home or any kind of commercial property. With that being said, that's it.
Okay. Do I have anyone from the audience who should
There was
make a
one
comment?
There was one comment from the assessor. You brought that up.
The assessor, yeah, same, the assessor wants,
Yeah, the how you're going to designate between the trade shop units and everything like that.
yeah,
Just wanna make
there'll be
sure.
2 different addresses.
Yeah, it'll be probably one address like ABC or whatever you want to go with that process, but yeah, there'll be the appropriate addresses will be
2 different
figured out.
tax bills, too.
Yeah, it's only has
To the tax bill.
2 different tax bills, 2 different addresses. That's the assessor, he's always thinking about the city.
Okay.
And I believe there was one comment from the Board of Health relative to the abutting residential properties, but
Not an issue.
about 125 feet away and 50 foot elevation delta.
And their elevation is considerably higher, aren't they?
Yeah, so just in the outer perimeter of our property, we're at about the 400 elevation. This building pad area down here is sitting at the 54. So
At what?
About 354.
350, so about 50 feet?
Yeah, about 50 feet.
Yeah.
And it's not a high usage use, so it's not anticipated to be.
Yeah, so whatever lighting you want that to be,
Yeah,
Yeah, down-
the wall pack security lighting around the buildings.
Right.
That would be about it.
Okay.
okay.
Comments?
I'll open it to the audience. Do I have any questions or comments from the audience? I'll ask again, do I have any questions or comments from the audience? Third and final time, do I have any questions or comments? From the board, do I have any questions at this time?
Move to close the hearing.
I have a motion made, do I have a second? And a second to close the hearing. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Close the hearing. Okay. Back on old business. Just for you folks that came in late, we've already had the reconsideration on Meadowland. The vote was not to approve. Okay?
Thank you.
What's that? I just want to let them know, because they were here for that. Okay. Okay, 4.3, continued site plan approval for 133 Nashua Street. Do we have any questions or comments, changes, conditions on Nashua Street? I think all in all, they pretty much covered all the bases. With them going to the parking lot, it turns out that the water quality actually increases, and their flows turn out to be better.
So we did a good thing.
What's that?
We did a good thing.
Yeah, so that worked out. We've got, I want to make sure I get Liz's comments that, so the motion, just be in order that, motion would be ordered to approve 133 Nashua Street with conditions from the various departments, including from the director. Do we have anything else?
What about the conservation comments?
Well, conservation comment, I mean, yeah, it's
Do you
true.
want to say anything about that?
The conservation comment came back to us and said they don't agree with the parking lot. We've got the parking lot on the drawing, it is on the drawing. They're gonna have, this plan has to be re-referred back to the Conservation Commission. They're gonna have to come up with a new set of conditions with the parking lot in place.
What do they want? They want it to.
Well, see what happened was. Yeah, and we have an ordinance in the city that says the parking area must be paved with asphalt or concrete or a special permit from the planning board. Okay? So if they wanted to go with just dirt, they would have had to come back to us for a special permit. They did not want to come back to us for a special permit, so that was their choice. So they redesigned the site with a parking lot.
Why would the Conservation Commission be against it if it actually approves the
The feeling from the Conservation Commission, as I understand it, was they believe that a parking lot has less impact, okay, to the surrounding area. A minimal impact plan. But in essence, it turns out that because of the added drainage, sub-drains that they're putting in, and the retention area underground, that actually the flows improve. To be honest with the conservation, they were not aware of that. That information was not available to them. It is now. So probably a motion would be to accept it with a motion to refer it back to the Conservation Commission for a new order of conditions. Okay? So that would probably be I think, the proper motion. What do you think, Carol?
I'm thinking about that. How about well, so the conservation comment is, the applicant has come to the commission and already received an order of conditions. I agree with leaving the area unpaved unless there is a law or regulation stating this is necessary. Well, there is.
There is.
Looking from an environmental side, it is better to leave the area unpaved. If the area was to be paved, this might alter the applicant's stormwater calculations. This would also not be considered low-impact development. The city ordinance described low-impact development as low-impact development practices such as reducing impervious cover, increasing site-wide infiltration, and preserving open space and other natural areas to the maximum extent practicable. The ordinance also encourages environmentally sensitive site design, which is defined as design that incorporates low-impact development techniques to prevent the generation of stormwater and non-point source pollution by reducing impervious surfaces. I'm going to stop reading. So I guess I would make a motion to approve. I'll start with this. I would make a motion to approve the site plan. With the condition that it obtains
A new order of
it
conditions.
obtains a new, if necessary.
Right.
Yes.
New order of conditions if necessary. Right. I have a motion made and seconded.
Excuse me.
And then also the standard
Department head.
department head comments.
Yep.
Department head comments. Anything else, gentlemen? Ladies? Okay, I have a motion made and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries.
And I make the same motion for the issuance of the special permit
Stephen, because I didn't
with the condition,
promote it.
with the condition that it complies with any revision of the Conservation Commission's order of conditions.
No second.
Okay, on the special permit approval for 133 Nashua Street, we have a motion by Carol. Do we have a second by Tom? Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries.
John, can I make a motion to move to 6.3?
Yeah, we can. Sorry about that. I have a motion to move to 6.2. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries.
6.3.
6.3, right. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Subdivision amendment for centralized delivery of new developments. We have the postmaster here.
Chris Down, brand new postmaster. So-
Congratulations.
Thank you. I know Rich has talked to you guys before.
Yes.
So just continuing on from what he had talked to you about, Elizabeth approached me, we talked about requirements that we require for new delivery. I sent Elizabeth a couple emails about it. Basically, we're going to centralized delivery, any type of new delivery, for a variety of reasons: safety of employees, efficiency of our operation. Occasionally, we would go to box on post delivery as well, if it makes sense, depending on a case-by-case basis, depending on how it fits with, if it's an extension of a street that has box on post, we might, continue with that. But any type of new developments are going to be centralized delivery unless there's some sort of situation, that would require otherwise. And we also require that we won't start a delivery until we approve the type of delivery. So if somebody puts up a subdivision and puts boxes on the house, we're not building delivery.
Okay. We're trying to come up with a plan that we can include that into our subdivision regulations.
Sure.
Which are the purview of this board. And I've got a couple of questions around that. I'd like to see a set of your regulations. And primarily, my primary thinking is that I try to keep it as simple as I can.
Sure.
And put it in our subdivision regulations that the mail delivery will be highlighted.
Yep.
And that it had to be with the approval of the post office department, okay? And then, but in doing that, I wanted to know, and the question I had was, do you have, well, let's say if I got we just have one at Meadowlands, and that can give us 27 houses. Would that be one centralized location for 27?
It would depend on the layout. Ideally, yeah, if they were close by, we'd want one area where the carrier pulls up. There could be multiple centralized units,
Okay.
but they would be in the same location, yeah. If it's
Okay.
a real big facility, then we might put several.
Maybe 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Do you have any kind of a number that breaks out at? Or is it
No, I
usually you
mean,
take it
just a
as
case-by-case.
a case-by-case situation?
Yeah, I think they're actually, Rich Shuey, the former postmaster, had given you guys some regulations. I think there's a printout.
Yeah, we have that
Yeah.
packet, but you took it a step further, remember?
Right, I think there is something in there about how spread out the facility is, how many boxes we could require.
And did you want to wreck a roof over it? Did you want to?
That's ideal.
Well, see, those are the types of things that
Those are our questions.
this is the
Yeah.
time that we can do that,
Right,
okay? That we can say, especially right now, I don't have a subdivision in front of me, so
Yeah.
anything we do becomes effective. So if we put in that we're gonna have a subdivision and say, okay, you have to have a place to park a car,
yeah,
maybe 2,
yeah.
or maybe there's a percentage of, you could tell us, if there's 20 boxes, do I need 2 spots?
Yeah, see, we
Do I
don't have
need
any,
1?
we don't have any regulations as far as parking for like customers or anything like that.
Okay,
It would just be for the truck to pull up, access the box.
so you have to have room for your truck to
Yeah,
pull off the
yeah,
road.
ideally off the road for safety
Right.
reasons. But there's no really written requirements to that.
Are there any suggested requirements or plans or
Suggested.
anything with covered areas?
Covers good for, our employees, and it's good for protection of the mail. If they're standing out of a unit that's got 100 boxes or 100 slots, and they're standing there for 15 minutes and it's exposed, that's not good, especially for customers now.
Oh, no, that's what I'm trying to address. If we're gonna do this,
Yeah,
then how do I address this in a smart way?
right.
Okay? And that's what I'm looking for recommendations from
Yeah.
you. And if somebody, are there plans that other people use that were particularly all good, that we can copy, that we could put in, because we could put it on our plan and say, hey, you got a subdivision,
Right.
you got 25, and I'd like to be able to come up with some kind of a number, say, you got 25 spots, you gotta have a place, one car to park,
Yeah.
it's gotta have some kind of a shelter, a lean-to type thing,
Sure.
maybe some kind of a basic drawing, and so that way they can put that in their plan, because that takes away from somebody else on a road and a place that they can park, so it has to be in a plan,
I think,
rather than tacking
You're not gonna
around
be able to put it
after.
in front of the house.
No, they got to,
They're gonna have to
You're gonna have to
accommodate it within
accommodate
the subdivision.
It's
Right.
it's located, it makes, what makes sense for where our carrier is coming from prior to
Right.
that, where they're going to after. We try to eliminate left-hand turns for our vehicles, for safety
Exactly,
reasons.
yeah.
So all that stuff is, we go out and look, and the builder says, this is where we want to put the mailboxes, and we, either say yes or no.
yeah, see,
But as far as written requirements, I wouldn't know about them, but I can put you in touch with someone in Boston. Her name's Lorraine Young, who deals with all the,
okay, that would be
Yeah,
good.
everything
Because I'd like
as far
to
as
put
new
it in the
development.
subdivision plan, a basic
Yeah.
plan,
yeah,
not down to nuts, really, but so we can give a suggested plan, like, and say, hey, this is what we're looking for.
and she will.
So the developer can do it up front, say, okay, I can put a house here, well, here's an empty spot that I can sort of work it in. And within the,
And she would have worked with other cities and towns, and
Well, I'm sure
the
there's some-
Boston district is, so she may have run into situations where, this has happened before.
I'm
I
sure
can get that
you've had some that have worked out great, and
Yeah.
others that have been failures.
The issue is when they just decide to put boxes up and then.
Right, so we want to head that off if we
Yeah,
can.
and if we start delivery, let's say we have a carrier that is new and goes up and makes a delivery, now we have a whole nother set of issues, because once we start delivery, it's hard
Yeah.
to stop it.
It's hard to stop,
Yeah.
right?
But, yeah.
Okay, so that's something we would do up front.
And
Okay,
there were, we had numbers, right, Elizabeth? Saying, well, let's say this is 100 homes and it's a large subdivision with all sorts of roads on it.
Yeah.
You'd probably want to stage those
Oh,
on each of the
absolutely.
roads, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So don't know if there was a limit on, by the size of the house or by the size of the, the road or the
Right.
length of the road.
Right.
I mean, all stuff
Yeah.
that you can help us with.
Yeah, I
if
can
you have
definitely-
that information.
I can give you the contact person that we
That'd be
would.
great.
and,
Yeah, we
that.
can,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah,
because we want to make it so it's good for you guys.
yeah, yeah.
do we want to do this by the 6th? Because we were going to look at,
What's that?
do you want to do this by the 6th?
Oh, no, I don't think so. I think that's a little quick to get you. Let's not schedule it at this point. And once you work, you with him and get some information, find out with Boston, once you get some package together in the next month or month and a half, it might take, and then and once we get a package together, then we'll schedule it. Rather than having it on the schedule and say, oh, just put it up, I'll put it up, put it up. I'd rather have it come back to a plan, say, okay, now we've done our due diligence, we've got a plan, let's bring it forward, let's take a look at it. Look at our subdivision regulations, where would it fit? Come up with an amendment that we need to go with it, and come with one night and get it done.
And if it's done earlier, if we have everything earlier, we can just bring it up earlier.
Yeah, whatever.
I just need the next week.
Oh, yeah, no.
We get through December 24th.
Oh, come on, I want that done tomorrow.
Yes.
How about tomorrow?
We
Maybe
just try to keep our head above water.
No, I definitely want to get away from that. Yeah, so no, I'd rather try to work without a deadline at this point. But we're working together.
Yeah.
Elizabeth can keep you up to date. If a subdivision happens to come in, where we have to work on it, then that's going to change it.
Sure.
That might change our dates, okay?
Absolutely.
So, impact. So up to this point, let's get it done right. Put it in rather than just, but we'd like to see it done this spring sometime.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for coming in.
Thanks. So the other comment I want to make is your son, a hero. Great kid, too. So,
Yeah, he had a good week.
yeah, he's
Thank you.
aside from that, he's a great kid.
Thank you.
So, I've only known him a month, but
Yeah, he speaks highly of you too.
He's a
He
poster.
really does.
Yeah, the post, where's the post office?
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
All right,
Okay, 5.1, Lancaster Street.
Yep.
I think Lancaster Street was in pretty good shape.
It was.
Looking at, I have a question. As I mentioned on the others, is lighting to be developed, okay? Landscaping to be done, okay?
LATV.
All there is a big commercial building across the street from that.
Well, yeah, I really don't have a big issue, but these are items that we should be addressed up front, and they should be coming to us with a plan.
yeah. I know.
Okay.
Well, we closed the hearing.
No, I agree with that, but I can comment on if I want, you know, and they should,
Before you make a decision.
yeah.
You want to be here all night.
We closed the hearing though.
You can't really.
No, we can make conditions, we're talking about conditions. Okay? So, yeah, I mean,
Well, they're gonna
it's,
have a light in the parking lot, on the side of the
Right.
building, on each side, they're gonna have a
Shut
light
it
coming
down.
downwards.
you know,
Common sense.
I
There's nothing
think,
there.
I think we want to, you know,
There you go.
for this one, it's a low impact, but I think we want to go back to the developers and start looking at some of this stuff and say, hey, we want to see some of this up front
On the plan. in
on the
writing.
plan, yeah,
Makes sense.
Going forward.
okay? So,
Make a motion to accept the site plan approval for 401.
I said,
for 401 Lancaster Street, I have a motion made and second to accept
That's
the site plan approval with conditions from the department heads
And the fact that it's not going to be 401 Lancaster Street.
and with a new
It used to
address.
be.
That's including the
They
department
switched the
head
building on the
comments.
other
That's
side.
in there with the assessor's comment.
Yeah, okay?
And the parking,
that's a
And
was part of
parking,
that.
oh, yeah. The sequential parking, I don't believe we need sequential parking. No,
I'll tell you, on my end,
Yeah.
he made the argument that, oh, we don't want him to think we're gonna have to paint the numbers. The staff is never gonna make you paint numbers on the spots. It comes into play when you say, okay, next to parking space 1, move the dumpster there, or the snow storage area behind space 3 needs to be managed better, or
It is a department head comment, I agree that we should do it.
it comes into play when you're managing site.
Where is it,
Code enforcement.
where is it in the ordinance? I've never even.
It's not, it's not.
okay.
So it's not in the ordinance, it's a practical matter, something I've seen done other places and worked well when you come to code enforcement.
We've seen them on other plans.
And it takes them, a CAD person,
And it makes
10 minutes
sense.
to take and write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, but then we call for those all to be numbered and visibly numbered inside the, or just on the plan.
Just on the plan,
Just on the
Okay.
not on the parking lot.
Okay.
Yeah, so as long as we know, on the plan.
Oh,
Okay, so when we make that a clarification,
Okay.
make sure it's not on the parking spaces themselves. The way I read it was sequentially parked, and I think that's what you were thinking of.
No, not
That
on
the
the,
numbers, the
not
parking
painted,
place would be
no.
all numbered.
Okay, all right, I'm ready to vote.
Okay, good, we just clarified that one.
Okay, let's vote.
Yeah, just change that so it's, on the plan only. Okay, on Lancaster Street, that's approved.
We need a
Need a vote.
Okay, all approved, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries.
I abstain.
Okay,
Yeah.
5.2.
You want to hear?
5.2, Tansfield Road. I think we got some real parking problems here. And I think they gotta come back with a plan.
We closed the
But we
hearing.
shouldn't have closed the hearing.
Oh, we did.
Well, yeah, well, we did. But we gotta come back with them and say, We shouldn't have closed that hearing.
And you should have said it.
Well, we did, so.
We did.
I don't think it's a big, huge parking problem, because I don't think,
Well, you could say with the condition that the parking plan be worked out with,
with you,
With Elizabeth.
we can,
so. I mean, just because we closed the hearing doesn't mean we can't play.
No, you closed the hearing, you can't put, we can put conditions on it.
Conditions.
We can put a condition on that they come up with a better parking plan.
Or they
We
could
could have had a
have
couple spots. I still
you can
think,
specify how many.
at the end of that building, I'm sure they could put a couple of spaces.
They only need like 2 or 3.
All we can
extra
require is
spaces.
that they get that handicap access spot. Other than that, like John said, they were good on paper.
They meet the numbers.
So if they're good on
It's their
paper,
practical
they
use.
dotted their i's and crossed their t's.
Right.
They want to create a bad situation.
Right. We would encourage strongly that
They're
they.
supposed to have one per employee during the maximum daily shift. And he said that they didn't know how many were there. So you have wiggle room there.
And you know what, there's a
Because
parking.
there's
But done in place, you got
Every
customers.
unit there, there's enough room to park a car, so I'm sure when somebody comes in, they can park in front of a unit that's got a lock on it, and then no one's there. So it's not that big of an issue. It really isn't. There's plenty of space in between all those buildings.
Well, the only thing I'm concerned about is the handicap.
Yeah, you know.
They definitely got
have the
customers.
handicap spot next to the one employee spot, and
I
let
couldn't,
everybody park.
I agree with
It's
everything
their
else you
problem.
said completely.
It's not, they're not busy places,
No.
right, normal.
Have you been to the one in Air?
No, I was gonna build one, I went to a trade show.
I'm of
spent
the
a weekend
opinion,
at
if you can't fit everything in your house, you have a problem. That's what I think.
I should move it. That's-
Well, people
Well,
should
when you
rent it, they
move-
should go to the dumpster and throw it all away.
Well, that's probably, that's
And when that
bigger.
storage was.
It's military, you gotta do.
Yeah,
right.
do it.
We need to make a motion.
I know, I'm teasing.
I think we have a parking problem now, and I'm sorry, I was in error in closing that. We should not have closed that hearing. Okay? And I think we gotta go back to them and say, on the conditions,
Well, just say that they need to put in the plan, put in the layout that there's at least 2 more spots. Just put them somewhere where it fits, at the end of that first building on the right.
I mean,
You know.
Can you make a procedure that they come back to the board?
well, I'm gonna say they come back to you,
a total of,
okay? To be reviewed. With a modification of the parking to accommodate
I would say
handicap.
this, with just the addition of the handicap spot, and encourage them when they come back to maybe see if they can do something else. But if they don't, then that's their prerogative.
Well, there's parking in the back.
There you have it.
Yeah.
They have parking in the
I don't think
back.
there's anything else we can actually require.
Yeah.
No,
If they meet the numbers.
on paper, they have enough.
On the paper, they have.
There is a pretty good spot. I mean, people don't spend a lot of time there, like you say, maybe you're waiting, but they get it locked and they go in front of their unit, they throw their crap in there.
There you go.
and they're out of it.
And it's
It's never to be back there again for a year.
Who knows? That's right,
Come on,
yeah.
Paul has something to say to you.
We're several board of permitted uses. They meet the it's permitted use.
I know, they
How are we gonna tell them
made,
they
a
matter?
total of 13 spaces are required by
So
the
let's
ordinance
just-
of the project.
If it's a
With
bad
13
plan, that's their
spaces
problem.
being
If they
provided,
meet the
3,
requirements, they meet the requirement.
5 parking spaces are provided on the storage unit pad.
It's permitted.
Let's
The
vote.
handicap spot has to be done.
Yeah, the handicap.
Handicaps.
Is that your motion, Paul?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Pat, can you please repeat it?
Repeat your motion.
To accept the site plan approval for Tanzio Road with department head comments and the addition of a handicap spot on the lower portion verified by the plan director.
Okay.
Thank you.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? And I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries.
That was 6.1.
Okay, plan board recommendations, 1528, Jill A. Natola, petition for acceptance of Sawtell Road, Montrose Street, and a portion of Richard Road. Referred from Legal Affairs, regular course.
When does this come back to us?
We got recommendations from the DPW on this.
We did. It's in there. We did. I will read it to you.
Okay,
Let me grab it. It's pretty basic. Raymond Racine, the DPW director, has said that the Leominster Department of Public Works has reviewed the petition to accept Celltown Road, Montrose Street, and a portion of Richard Road as public ways. The DPW approves the petition as submitted.
okay, so I have a motion from the DPW to accept it as submitted.
So motion.
There was one question that when they came up on this, and we might want to, I'm not sure how to deal with that, was that little section of Montrose is really a confusion road. So we might want to put that in, that section. Montrose comes off of Grant Street. It comes to and then there's like 3 houses.
Yeah.
And then there's
Then there's the rotary.
then there's just wetlands and the road stops.
Yeah.
Then it continues, it's really a paper street that comes all the way through. And then you got that section again that's Montrose, but there's no houses on it, there's nothing there. But if there was ever an accident or a problem, so say I'm on Montrose, the fire department would go over to Grant Street, they'd never get over, they'd be on the wrong side. Okay? So really that should be, that little section of road should be renamed. Okay?
Is that within our purview?
Well, no, it's a recommendation. Oh, yeah. Well, we don't rename it, but they would have to go back. I don't know what the renaming process is.
It's to the veterans.
I think that's up to the city council.
Yeah, well, they would have to.
Gotta be a veteran.
It's confusing, I know, because there's 2 different names.
Right.
Gamache, and then it's confusing, but I don't know about renaming it. Maybe they just gotta make it, it's confusing in and out.
Well, I think the recommendation goes back to the city council.
Yeah,
They're saying that small section of Montrose should be renamed after a veteran. Okay? And that we accept the recommendation from the DPW.
okay. All the binder coats down, was the finish coat down? on
Yeah,
this
that's all done. Those roads have been they've been done
So
for
they're
quite a while.
approved.
Yeah.
I will make that motion.
So I have a motion made and seconded. Good. Do I have any further discussion? Here none, a call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries.
6.2.
Plan board recommendation for Jill A. Natola, petition for acceptance of easement for Research Drive Extension, legal affairs. Did you get that one?
Yeah, it's attached to the statute.
Are you wanting the recommendation?
Yeah, I don't see
Yeah.
a recommendation.
There is no recommendation.
We do not have a recommendation.
Can I move the table then?
Second.
Nice.
Okay, we do not have a recommendation on the second one?
No, we do not.
So we'll move the table.
Okay, well,
Until we have a recommendation.
Table for further
Yeah.
information.
on this one here, on Research Drive, yeah, motion would be to table pending receipt of recommendation from DPW.
That's the motion.
There you
A
go.
motion is to definite time, motion made and seconded. Do I have any discussion on that?
A definite,
Made to, no, the motion is for pending information from the DPW. Okay?
January 6th?
Depends on when we get the recommendation.
Okay.
Whenever they get the recommendation, then we can put it on communications.
Okay, we'll vote on that.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries.
6.4.
6.3, we've already we've taken care of. 6.4, 2021 Unified Planning Work Program.
You have some time on this one. We don't have to have this until March, but we're starting early. And then I think it's not really due till April, but they want to have everything finalized by March. I reached out to
Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission today 3 times. And I,
Is that a rep? We don't have a rep? Oh,
Yeah,
so,
I've been to a meeting.
oh, okay, I was just curious, I was
I
curious.
had the pleasure of being at one. Leave that off the
so
record.
I
Okay, the one I
talked to
was going to
Brenner.
do-
I'm sorry, Liz, I didn't mean to.
Why don't we take and make, you okay, they come forward with these requests. Why don't we take and invite them to come to a
I
meeting,
did invite him to the meeting tonight.
okay?
He couldn't come tonight.
Okay, schedule it for February, early February.
February 2nd?
Yeah.
It's a Sunday.
Well, when they can make it, February. Whenever they can make it.
That's Super Bowl Sunday.
What? Oh,
Let's not schedule them for Sunday.
It's a Sunday.
Yeah, that's.
as long as it's not Sunday.
So
It's
just
the first
first
Monday.
meeting in
That's the
February.
3rd is the Monday.
Oh, I can't read my own handwriting. I have a 3. Or maybe I need glasses now.
February 3rd.
You need glasses.
Yeah, I might
Okay.
need glasses
The road
now.
gets worse, you know.
So schedule it, see if they can come in, give them a plan in advance,
That will be fun.
and let us know what they want.
Okay.
And I'm going from the 9th to the 16th.
Okay, intern.
Yeah.
February 6:25, I actually know this.
Okay, we don't have any intern.
Do we
Yeah.
want to quickly,
6:25.
not today.
Okay.
Okay. The director's report, I think your individual reports on the different projects are
Yeah, I
very
give
good.
you enough reports.
Okay?
Did we want to talk about the scheduling and just make sure that we have it the way you want it for the next couple meetings?
Sure.
We have January 6th, then we have a holiday, we have February 3rd, and then we have a holiday. Do you want the schedule as such?
I'd leave it at that, and if the workload comes up that we get a bunch of stuff that comes up, then we'll schedule a meeting.
I won't be here on the 3rd.
I'll be here on the 3rd, but I won't be at anything else in March,
Yeah, you're going for a while.
to April. Not for another month.
So,
I won't be here
St. Patrick's Day
January
month now?
I'm going for
a month.
16 days in February.
So why don't we,
All
well, all right, so this is just for, we've got 2 holidays, one in January, one in February, right? That's what we're hearing.
Yep, that's fine.
So let's just keep it as is, and if it gets real tight, then we'll schedule an ad hoc
Right.
meeting as needed.
Okay.
Because John,
The 20th is,
I've been gone, this is my last meeting of the year.
so then it's gonna come down.
It's our last meeting of the year, for the record.
yeah, but we've arranged for John.
I'll be on the phone. I'm gonna be conferencing in.
Oh, my
Oh,
God.
thank God.
So you guys aren't gonna get rid of me. And before we leave,
Well, wait, let's adjourn first, and then you do that.
Yes.
Motion to
Because I have to
adjourn.
go.
motion to adjourn, but you can't leave.
No,
Carol,
who wants the plug, Rob?
I'm advertising for the Rotary Club,
How much is it, 20?
$20.
Here. Thanks.
Fill it out and get it back to me. These are the Rotary calendars. They're a beautiful calendar of the history of Leominster, $20 a piece.
You got me.
And thank you very much, folks. I have a motion to adjourn.
I made it.
All approved, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries.